All right, let's see here. If you're watching the replay, I'm just going live. I have not posted the link to the group yet. So let's just get this here. Let's see. I thought I was to find the share link. All right. All right, there we go. It's posted in the channel. Sorry, everybody. If you're getting like a roller coaster here. Hey there, Jax Coder. All right, so let's see here. Everybody's kind of trickling in. I've got a couple questions that were submitted ahead of time that I want to go over in the live stream today. But while everybody's trickling in still, we'll talk about a cool new video that has dropped today. So I just started a brand new tutorial series that shows you how to build like an instant like cryptocurrency swap app, like where you can trade tokens, buy and sell tokens like instantly. So it's like inspired by projects like Uniswap or something like that. That's kind of what the interface looks like. Basically, it allows you to buy and sell cryptocurrencies at a fixed price, and it's got liquidity built into the application. So I'll explain like why that's a good benefit. So, you know, if you think about like other cryptocurrency exchanges, like you build the Bootcamp, for example. So the Bootcamp's like a really advanced exchange. This is like a much simpler project. So like on a traditional cryptocurrency exchange, you have to go in and like create buy and sell orders. And you have to like wait for other people to fill your orders, right? Basically, you go in there, there's an order book, there's like a price chart and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes these cryptocurrencies exchanges like match your orders, all that kind of stuff. So basically, like how this is different is you don't have to wait for anyone to purchase your cryptocurrency, and you're not always sitting there like watching the price go up and down based on what the market says, like based on what other people want to pay for it. This allows you to purchase your tokens back instantly, or sell them instantly, or buy them instantly at a fixed price, a perfectly known redemption rate. So it's powered by smart contracts. Basically, it allows you to purchase custom ERC20 tokens with Ether, so the native cryptocurrency of the Ethereum blockchain. And then once you have these tokens, you can sell them back to the exchange with Ether as well, or for Ether. So let's see here. Let's see. So Steve says he just joined. So Steve, are you on the call? Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to answer Steve's question really quickly because he just reached out to me about this. So Steve was asking, I'm actually going to pull up your question, Steve. Let's see here. So Steve's asking about how to build really nice looking UIs. This is a really common question. He says he's more of a back-end programmer, but he wants to find a way to build a website just like this one he provided me. This is dent.info. So this is a project that I've actually worked with. I didn't build this particular website, but I know the one he's talking about. So if you want to look at what he's talking about, just go to dent.info in your browser. So he wants to know how to build something that's closer to that, because it looks really nice. You know, it's very user-friendly, all that kind of stuff. So there's there's really three different aspects to all this. There is the design, right? And still separate from the design is still kind of like user experience. And then also like copywriting. So how you build an amazing web page, honestly, in my opinion, is starting off with copywriting. So like, what are the words that are actually on the website? What's it communicating? What's it telling people to do? And almost think about this like a newspaper. Like you write a compelling headline that sort of gets their attention, and that essentially funnels them towards like one central call of action. So that's where you start, and then you sort of layer the user experience on top of that. It's like, how do you direct them toward that? And a lot of people will, kind of say user experience and design are kind of the same thing. And sometimes your designer will be your UX person, all that kind of stuff. And I could definitely see that point, but I see them somewhat separate in my mind, because a good UX designer can basically give you like a wireframe of what the app should look like. You can go from copywriting to like, here's the words that are supposed to appear on the page. And you can go to a wireframe, and a good UX designer can give you that without all the flash and pizzazz of a designer. And you could get that, and then the designer could basically take the wireframes from the UX person and put all the flash and color and stuff like that on it. So that definitely, those last two steps could be the same person, but it always can be kind of given. That can be a responsibility that can be broken out and delegated to others. So if your end goal is to create something that looks nice and that people will actually use, there's actually more to it than just design, but I wanted to say that before I got to the design part of it. So you can get stuff that looks really nice if you're more of a back-end developer. Yes, there are React UI templates. There's lots of WordPress templates and stuff like that too. It depends on what you want to do. So a lot of times for projects that I work on, if they're just marketing websites, a lot of times I'll just hire a developer to develop the marketing website separate from the actual app that I'm building. So you'll see this a lot, like on, if you go to Airbnb or some of these other websites, they have like a landing page that has a really nice looking marketing site. And then you'll click over to their actual app, and it's like app.airbnb.com or something like that. Actually, I don't know if Airbnb does this. I think it does, but there's plenty of examples like this. So honestly, for lots of apps that I build, I use sort of UI kits. So I usually have somebody else build this really nice looking, landing page where you need it, and then have a UI kit. There's like, Bootstrap is a really popular one. So like, honestly, if you look at like React Bootstrap themes, like React Bootstrap themes, pop that in the first page of Google. And let's see, Creative Tim is a really good example. I've actually used Creative Tim stuff before. So those are really good examples of like dashboard types of themes. And these themes can be used to build landing pages still, even if they're dashboard themes. Because what you really want to do is have something where like the buttons look nice and all the containers are a predictable size and the backgrounds have the same types of colors, all that kind of stuff. So that's an example. So sorry, Steve chimed in here. Yeah, totally seen. Yeah, totally. So, but I'll continue on just answering your question about like, even if you don't want to do that, like how do you still make UIs that look good for your own projects? So I would consider something like starting with the Bootstrap framework and then adding themes on top of it. So I've used Bootstrap for a long time. There's lots of other ones. There's Material Design. That's a pretty popular one among, that's kind of an answer to Bootstrap. I think Material Design was put up by Google, I want to say. So it's just a design system where basically it's a grid-based layout, all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to solve this problem without having some design fundamentals. So I'm not a strong designer at all by any stretch of the imagination, but I still ship quite a few client projects that don't have any design budget because of what the end user is actually going to do with it and who the end user is. So I would check out like Bootstrap themes. You could look at Material Design. You could do like, go to Theme Forest and purchase some like custom theme. Honestly, at the end of the day, sometimes I find that those are more trouble than they're worth. What I found myself doing a lot for projects that don't have really fancy design requirements, but still need to look nice, is sometimes I'll just go to like Theme Forest and look at a really nice looking theme, or go to another website that I really like and admire the look of it. And I'll literally just keep that open in one browser, and I'll like lay out my app with a system that I already know, like Bootstrap, for example, and just make it look approximately like this other website with my content. Um, and that'll get you like at least 50% of the way there, if not a lot more. At the end of the day, like most of the time now, I'm not really doing any design. I'll have somebody else do it. So I hope that helps. If you got any more specific questions, I'd be happy to go over those. I know it's kind of a long-winded answer, but I've definitely found myself in that position before. I'm like, how do I make this look nice? And my instant reflex is to say, oh, I need a better design theme. And then I go buy $100 design theme, and it just ends up being worse or doesn't solve the problem. Okay, so let's see here. So Santiago, I believe, had a question. Santiago, are you on the chat? So I'll wait for Santiago's question to come in. So I got another question here from, okay, Santiago's here. What's up, Santiago? How are you? Yes, I can see you there. Did you have a question for us? Looks like you're having some trouble on the coding channel. Okay. So it looks like Santiago is having a little bit of an installation issue. I'm going to go back to his chat here in the coding channel. So he looks like he says he downloaded the token code from the Video Vault website where I talked about moving the token to mainnet. And I included the source code for the Dapp University token in there. He's trying to customize that to build his own project. And he's trying to interact with the code in the Truffle console, it looks like. But he receives an error that says, cannot find module.env. So my suspicion is that either you don't have the .env node package added to your package.json file, or you do and you haven't installed the dependencies on your computer. So what I would do is just check your package.json file first and make sure that you see .env in there. And then do npm install and make sure that your packages are installed. I suspect that they're not, and you need to restart the Truffle console after you do both of those things. So it's asking for the .env module inside your truffle-config file. I bet at the very top you'll probably see like required.env. Then it'll call the load function, which will actually fetch the .env file and add the variable values to your process.env variable, global variable in Node.js. So that's probably what it's doing. Oh, if you created it manually, I see. So if you created it manually, I would go to my package.json file and make sure you see .env in there. Oh, so you need to create a .env file. Yeah, that's also true. So yeah, touch.env. Yeah, you're correct. So Santiago's asking in the chat, for anyone who can't see, he's asking if he needs a .env file. So yeah, you touch.env. Touch is the Linux command for creating a new file, and then .env is the file name. There's no so dot, like it literally it's a dot, like a period, then env. So it's a hidden file. All right, great. Yeah, give that a shot, Santiago. So I'm going to go for another question here from Lucid. Let's see. I'm going to find it. I'm not sure that he's on the call today, but he asked a question and I said that I would answer it here tonight. Okay, so he's asking how to basically create an Ethereum wallet without having to use MetaMask or any kind of blockchain application for that matter, without using MetaMask. So he's doing the tutorial that I released a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, about how to build a blockchain wallet with JavaScript. So essentially in that tutorial, I gave you sort of an introduction on how you might build a blockchain wallet, but it still requires you to use MetaMask. Essentially, it's a web wallet interface, and it still gives you the benefit of being able to send tokens around, things like that. You could add token metrics or whatever you wanted to. But he's saying okay, if I don't want to have to use MetaMask just for this purpose, because I can already do a lot of this stuff inside of MetaMask, how would I create a standalone application that allows people to send and receive ERC20 tokens or Ethereum-based tokens in their browser, right? So that's a great question. You can certainly do this, but it's challenging. There's a lot of work to be done, okay? So here's what. Essentially, whenever you send, the challenge really is sending the tokens. It's not necessarily receiving them. So here's why. Whenever you hold tokens or you send them around, you need an account on the blockchain, and that account has a public key and a private key pair. And your account address is, part of your public key. So if you open MetaMask, for example, and you see your account there, that's part of your public key. So that's where people know to send you money. But if you want to see how many tokens you have, all you need is that account information, and you can just load your balance up and show it on a web page. You don't necessarily need MetaMask installed in order to do something like that. I mean, you just have to know what your current account is. Okay. So for sending cryptocurrency, that's the more challenging part. Okay. So you would have to essentially create a way for users to sign transactions. So I'll explain that. Anytime you perform an action on the blockchain, you create a transaction, right? So you are actually updating the state of the blockchain. And because they pay gas fees, for one, you have to hold cryptocurrency in that wallet, Ether. And number two, you have to sign the transaction so that the network, can verify that it's you, that you're the one that's doing it. It's part of the whole security process. Okay. So, in order to sign it, you must have access to the private key. All right. And the private key part of this whole thing is what's really heavy. Okay. So essentially, you have to create a way to store users' private keys inside your application if you want to create, a web wallet or any kind of mobile wallet without MetaMask. So that opens up a lot of questions that you have to answer. Where do you want to store that private key? Is it secure? Do your users want you to store your private keys? Can they export their private keys and take them with you? Whenever they export them, are they still going to live inside your application? And if they do, are your funds just not safe anymore? So it's a big can of worms that once you start managing private keys, you have to answer a lot of questions. So for web wallets, I would recommend having a backend that does this. Yeah, Steve says no key, no crypto. That is definitely true. It can be true, but good rule to live by. Better safe than sorry. So if you're going to store private keys, I wouldn't do it in a client-side website for sure. I would do it on the back end. So you're going to have to sign transactions on the user's behalf on the back end, and it's going to add quite a bit of complexity to your application. So you're going to need a database now. You need some sort of back-end API or service that stores user information, probably log in. That's the other thing, is the user now is going to have to log in. So you have to add user authentication, email, password, forgot my password, reset my password, all that kind of stuff to your application. And then associated with that user record on the database, they have to have a private key and an account. So basically, if you wanted to send tokens, they would click a button. They probably have to have some extra. Basically, like you also have to add some extra like confirmation whenever they do transactions. So like if they want to send money in your application, like they probably have to double confirm that that request is valid. Maybe even two-factor authentication or something like that, where they confirm with a text message, which is pretty additional complexity. And so Steve's saying here, you need to encrypt the private keys. You store both requests. Yes, that's true. So anytime the private key goes over the wire, that information also has to be encrypted. And when you store it inside the database, and you need some sort of way to decrypt those before you use them. So like, think about this. You're building all this extra stuff that the blockchain already does, if that makes sense. So like, unless you have a really compelling reason to do it, which there can be compelling reasons with users that serve users that are okay with you doing this. That's perfectly valid. But I guess you have to ask yourself, why do you want to do it in the first place? And do you really want to go down that road? It's very possible. But for most people who are trying to build just like prototypes or MVPs that are trying to serve people who have some proficiency with the blockchain, I'd probably go a different direction. All right, let's see here. I've got a few more questions, I think, in the backlog, but if anybody else has questions who's on the call right now, go ahead and drop them in the thread inside Slack. I'll make sure I get to those. And also, I guess everyone who's made this call is probably aware, but so I'm in the United States and we went on daylight savings time. So that's why the call is an hour ahead of when it normally is. Sorry, I had to think about it, about the mental math. So if you're watching the replay and you're not on daylight savings time and missed everything, my apologies. So also one thing to think about is I may try to, so we've done this live call as a standing appointment for, so this is the 7th one now. So I may try to actually move this to a Wednesday at the same time. My Mondays are starting to get a little crazy, but I want to make sure that I am accommodating everyone with their schedules. So if that time does not work for everyone, we can keep it as it is. But it may be better for Wednesday. So I'll talk about that in the group. But if anybody right now has any objections, just let me know. So got another question come in here. Let's see. Sorry, my Slack is. So Matt actually asked me a question here. See if he can join the. He asked me a question about his flash loans contract. Hopefully I can just answer it right here. So Matt's trying to build a flash loan contract. So I don't know if you all saw my video about flash loans, but it's a pretty popular point of interest right now in the crypto sphere. All right, so Matt's just joined the call. Hey, Matt, welcome. So I got your question here. I'm just going to read through it, and hopefully we can get you unstuck. Or I haven't even really looked at it yet. I'm just going to take a look and see if we can offer some feedback. I'm not sure if you're actually stuck. We're going to find out. So Matt says, I'll just read it out loud. I've managed to compile, deploy, and run flash loan contracts on local ganache. Awesome. So although I need to remove implementation of OpenZeppelin's ownable because compilation of smart contract was making problems. Okay. So backstory on this thread, looks like he's using a third library that has an old dependency that he needs to change the version of to make this work or just remove it. So let's continue on here. Flash loan contract is failing because contract is not funded with any DAI, so it cannot make the flash loan repayment, which includes the amount borrow plus fee. This is stated in instructions on GitHub. Solve this by using an address already funded with DAI or send yourself some DAI to begin with. So none of these two solutions make sense. How can you use a contract? Okay. So Matt, what I would do, you're talking about using this on your local ganache. You're not doing this on a test network, right? You're just doing it locally on your computer. Okay. So what I would do honestly is just deploy an ERC20 token that is DAI on your computer. Yeah. So I would just create an ERC20 token inside your project that's just called DAI. It doesn't actually have to work like DAI. It just has to work like an ERC20 token. And you can basically just pretend like it's DAI and replace the address in your flash loan contract to use that token instead of actual DAI. Okay, so when you go to the test network and you want to try this out, like Kovan test network, for example, or Ropsten or something like that, you'll have to get DAI by actually interacting with the MakerDAO CDP. At least that's the only way that I know how to do it on the test network. So I'm going to send you a link right now to a basic ERC20 token that you can use inside your project. Let's see here, that you can pretend is DAI. Does that make sense? I'm pasting you right now in the Slack chat, the basic ERC20 example. Awesome, Matt. Yeah, keep up the good work. It sounds like you're making great progress on this. I know everyone is interested to see how the flash loan thing turns out. So if you get any good results, let us know. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions here? So Santiago says, hey, so everyone can see this webinar? No, so this is an unlisted webinar. So basically that means it's on my YouTube channel, but you have to have the link to join it. So it doesn't appear in search results. It doesn't appear on my YouTube channel. Basically, I have to give you this link in order to join this live stream. So let's see here. Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, this is a special Blockchain Mastery University only live stream. All right, so Steve says gas limit. Sorry, so Steve says gas limit versus gas price. Let's see. The limit is the fixed rate or something, and the price is the price for a unit of gas. Let's see here. Okay, so sorry, I got a little distracted. Right, so the gas limit basically is the maximum amount of gas that you would pay in a transaction. And sometimes you'll see this abbreviated just as gas. So like if you go to like your truffle project and you see gas like as a single key name. That's usually talking about gas limit. So the gas price is the price for a single unit of gas. So think about it like this. Like a lot of people get confused because they usually think that like one gas is like equal to one Ethereum, or there's some like relationship, and that's not actually true. So the gas price is the actual price based in Ether. So for example, if you have so the gas is an abstract unit, and the gas price is the price that you're willing to pay in order to make the transaction happen. So if you can look on the network and see that gas costs like, let's say you're willing to pay, the gas cost is going to be 100 units. So it costs 100 gas to fulfill the transaction, and you're saying I'm willing to pay, 5 gwei for the transaction, or maybe you're willing to pay 1 gwei for the transaction. Basically, it means that it costs this amount, but you're willing to pay more or less. And typically speaking, the amount of gas that you're willing to pay determines the speed at which the transaction is processed. So if you're willing to pay more, it generally happens faster. If you want to pay less, then it takes longer. So the reason for this is basically right now, because Ethereum is proof of work, whenever you send your transaction, you pay a higher gas fee. Essentially what happens is the miners sort the transactions by the highest gas costs. So whoever is willing to pay the most, their transactions get mined first. Because they're miners, and they get rewarded based on higher fees. Does that make sense? If there's anything that's unclear, happy to circle back and explain that more. Okay, awesome. So that makes sense, Steve. All right, let's see here. We got some more questions rolling in. So Santiago says, let's see here. Santiago says he teach more on YouTube. So yeah, it's a good question, Santiago. So I guess he's kind of asking for clarification about Blockchain Mastery University. So the big value of Blockchain Mastery University is the ongoing community aspect, the weekly added videos inside the video vault. So I am still doing a lot of education inside of my YouTube channel for DApp University. So kind of how I just, compare and contrast Blockchain Mastery University with like the bootcamp, for example. So like if you want the in-depth, like step-by-step guide on how to master blockchain from start to finish, and build like a real world project and get like the super advanced tutorial, that's what the bootcamp's for. Which is different from Blockchain Mastery University, because the bootcamp really does not have the community aspect, and it doesn't have the regular ongoing content added to it either. All right, let's see here. So another reason for that too is it gives people the option to join Blockchain Mastery University who haven't joined the bootcamp. So Santiago's potentially interested in the bootcamp. Yeah, I'd happy to switch you over to the bootcamp if you'd like to. Just feel free to reach out to me. Email address gregory@dappuniversity.com if you're interested in joining the bootcamp. Steve says the coding channel is very helpful. Yes, thank you, Steve. So totally. I know I said this when Blockchain Mastery University launched, but I said that I wish I had this when I first started learning blockchain, as 100% true. I mean, it would have cut the learning curve so fast if I'd been able to figure some of this stuff out with someone else's help. I mean, I was an experienced developer already when I taught myself blockchain, but it was still hard because it's so different from anything else I'd ever done before. Even with years of programming experience, it's such a paradigm shift, and there was hardly really there's hardly any learning resources out there on the web on how to do it. So Jack says yes, it's very different. And also anyone who's uh, watching that may be brand new to programming, um, you know, part of just learning new things is just total discomfort because especially if you don't have any kind of frame of reference, if it's completely abstract, you literally just have to like stare at something that's completely abstract that you have nothing to compare it to until it makes sense. So I know people with genius level IQs, like literally, who have like tried to learn programming and like they just bounce. And part of it's like everyone's brain works differently, and we have a very long, nuanced conversation on intelligence and how that works. But I think a lot of people who are incredibly intelligent are used to things coming easy to them, and if you're getting into programming and it doesn't come easy to you, then they just sort of bounce. So, long story short, you don't have to be a genius to become a programmer, and even if you are a genius, it won't necessarily come easily to you. And if you are an experienced developer, blockchain won't necessarily come easily to you either. So Jack said he's been coding for over 10 years. Awesome. Steve has too. Awesome. Object-oriented programming is not. That is true. Although Solidity is technically considered contract-oriented, which is somewhat like object-oriented, but not really. Everything is not a contract in Solidity. Yeah, async also true. Yeah, totally. I think the contract orientation is a marketing term. So let's see here. We got a few more minutes. Okay, so Jack says he's got 10 years of programming experience. So what's your programming background, Jax? And also Steve says he's got quite a bit of experience too. So you all let us know what your previous backgrounds were. So .NET and Java. So .NET Core MVC, and then Ruby on Rails. Oh, Steve, Ruby on Rails. Yeah. That's how I got started. I was a Ruby on Rails developer. Lots of business apps. Yep, I know how that goes. Yeah, one of the first developers I ever got help from was a .NET developer. All right, let's see here. If anyone else has any other questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. Happy to answer them here on our live call. I'll reach out a couple more times, and if no one else has any pressing questions, maybe we'll wrap up early tonight. But I'll stick it out for a few more minutes just to see. You want to give everyone a fair chance to ask their questions if they want to. So James says phone is about to die. Oh, I know how it feels, James. I'm about to die too. I'm at the end of my day. Quite tired. So Santiago asked, yes, Santiago, if you, please send me an email to gregory@dappuniversity.com. So Steve says, I want to learn more about flash loans. Are there any sample contracts out there? Yes, Steve. So if you look at Matt's thread, I'll just find the link right now. Actually, I'm just going to tag you in it. So check this out, Steve. There's a pretty big thread in there where we've been talking about flash loans. Yeah, crickets. Sorry, I started losing steam there. This time change has really gotten to me. My schedule's off. I'm pretty tired. So also when you observe that with the crickets, that's what my computer sees all day long. All right, let's see here. Any more questions? Give us a couple more minutes here, see if any other questions roll in. If not, we'll wind down early. All right, see you, Jax. As the bonus is, I've got a lot more light at 6 p.m. than I normally do. So is anyone else on this call not on daylight savings time? I still can't ever keep track of like who actually observes it and who does it. So Steve told me that everyone in Canada observes it just like the US does, and that they have all the same time zones that we do. Yeah, I just stopped keeping track of time zones a long time ago. I just use a calculator for everything now. I've always had to coordinate so many different times across the globe that I just have to use a tool. So Europe has summertime. Yeah, I'm used to that. I can't remember which countries are on which though. Is it all the same? Like Central European summertime, is that different than Eastern Europe? I don't actually know. Like, is Ireland on the same time zone as I don't know, like all of Germany? So also, if you're brand new to software development, time zones will probably be the bane of your existence for two reasons. One is the applications have to deal with time zones, and if you deal with any data that has to accommodate time zones for users, it can be a real headache. And then the other is you'll probably have to work remotely at some point in time, whether you're remote or the person you're working with is remote. And time zone coordination can be a headache there too. So I've had some pretty okay. So Matt says 1 hour between Ireland and Germany. Perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. I figured that'd be some discrepancy or some difference. Those seem like they're pretty. Those seem like they're not close, like Eastern Germany and Ireland. Yeah, I've had. I think I posted in the group earlier. People who were just setting up their development environments and running into problems. I always try to tell people that, like, especially for the Windows users, that like this can be one of the hardest parts of the entire process is getting an environment set up, and that I've had professional projects where environment issues have cost days or weeks. So not necessarily just developers like setting up their environment, but like if you're a brand new developer, you haven't probably yet had to do system administration like on servers or anything and deal with the phenomenon of works on my box, doesn't work on their box. So that's a big professional thing that you'll have to overcome at some point potentially. And the reason I said that entire thing was that time zones are a very similar type of thing. So if you ever deal with an application that has to accommodate time zones where users are involved and you have to accommodate the user's time zone versus what your app says, and you have users across multiple time zones, you have to reconcile that information, it can get pretty complicated. I've had bugs in systems that I've had to debug where time zones were part of the problem, and it can get really, really nasty depending on how complex the system is. Had those problems that stuck around for weeks. I'll give you an example of ways that time zones can really matter. So basically, like if you built a system where the user is having to report their financial spending across like anything over to like an accounting department, and you get the time zone wrong, you can basically say that like we spent $100,000 more than we thought we did in a certain period of time because we got the time zone wrong. It's it can be pretty crazy. Or think about it, if you're building a calendar application and you misbooked an important appointment for somebody and like just off by an hour, and this person's a CEO, that can be a big deal. Or you miss a flight, for example. Like say you have an airline app where you have to sell tickets and you get the time zone wrong. That's a big deal. So Kevin K says, 2 seconds before midnight. Do you have a tutorial on Sublime Text? Notice you got lots of tricks, shortcuts for efficiency. I do not have a tutorial on Sublime Text. I might put that on my video board if more people are interested in seeing that. It might be hard for me to think about all the tips that I actually use because I take so many of them for granted. But yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll put that on my board right now. Maybe that'll make it onto my channel. If not, maybe I can do a quick video for Blockchain Mastery University. So if you want a quick bit of advice, Kevin, what you can do is one of the handiest Sublime Text shortcuts is the symlink to open the project in your text editor. So if you go to your command line and you type subl, you can open any file. So you probably see me do it on screen as subl dot. So that just basically means open the current directory in Sublime Text. So what is the color on my terminal? That's a good question. I believe it's solarized, but let me look. I wish I had documented all this stuff at the end of last year because I bought a new computer and had to transfer everything over. And that's when that's when you learn what you actually use and take for granted is when you switch machines. All right, let's see here. Preferences. Hold on a second. Yeah. So Steve, this is the terminal color scheme that I use. And then color, that's right, correct spelling. So Kevin says he's using Atom, but open to other options. It's up to you, Kevin. I've been a long time Sublime Text user and never changed simply because there's not really a compelling reason for me to do it. There's lots of bells and whistles that new text editors come out with all the time. A lot of those features eventually get open sourced and contributed to the Sublime Text community, so that they can be imported into Sublime Text and make them work with these other text editors. So like, yeah, if you like checking out new text editors, feel free. So Steve says he likes VS Code or Visual Studio Code. So for me personally, like, I've just never found a compelling reason to switch. It takes a lot of time. Like it would take me weeks, maybe even months to adjust to a new workflow. And for me, the time factor in that is I've never really wanted to pay that cost. Especially like no one can ever totally convince me that I'm actually going to get a positive ROI in terms of my time for changing text editors or like pretty much any of the developer tools that I use. Simply because it would take me so long to reap that ROI. Like say there's this new text editor that has a feature that saves me 4 seconds a day or something like that. You know what I mean? Like something crazy. Maybe it's even a minute per day, right? Well, it would take me 60 days to get back an hour. And it would probably take me 60 days to get used to that new workflow. So it would take a long time to justify the cost. But if you like doing it, by all means, I've just never wanted to. And Sublime Text has always been supported. There's never been any issues with it. And it's widely used, like I said. So if something new comes out, a lot of times it gets built for Sublime Text by the community. So let's see here. Any other burning questions on the live stream tonight? We got a few more minutes here. I'll go ahead and give us about a 5-minute warning. So Steve says, am I making any changes here and there to the boot camp? So yes, I am making changes. The sort of first round of defense for the boot camp, if issues pop up, are basically adding ways to fix them in the notes. So part of the challenge with the boot camp is if there's a significant problem with the code, which there haven't been any real significant problems with the code, even though the dependencies have changed over time, or something breaks, like it's hard to really thoroughly fix it without literally recording the entire thing. And I think there's over 15 hours of content in the boot camp. So I've gone back and forth with people who kind of run into problems here and there, who run into the same kinds of problems, and usually just telling them how to fix the problem in the video is good enough. So yeah, I'm actively doing that. At some point, there will probably be like a major version bump in the boot camp, but I don't have any official statement on that just yet. All right, so Matt says he gets an error here when trying to deploy the Dai contract with Truffle. All right, so could not find artifacts for. Okay. So Matt, do you have a file called die.sol in your project? Okay. And is the contract named die inside that file? Like, does it say contract space capital D little AI space open curly brace, close curly brace? Okay. Okay, let's see. It's hard for me to totally tell without actually like seeing what your project looks like. Are you having any other issues with your other contracts? If you can put your project code, share it with me somehow, either put it in the group or just send me a private message, that would be fine too. I can take a look. Otherwise, it's hard for me to say without getting my hands on it. If you don't want to do that, you can also try like putting your migration maybe in the second migration. It looks like you created a third file here for deploy contracts. You might be able to, or sorry, deploy die. Maybe you can put it in the second migration, see what your results are there. It won't necessarily fix anything. But it might give you better insight to what the error is. All right, so let's see here. So looks like in your die.sol file, the contract is still named token. Can you try changing the name to die, DAI? So in the file you just sent me. So like on line 3, it says contract token. Change that line to contract die. And also, I'm not sure what version of Solidity your project is using. So you may need to accommodate the Solidity version from this code that I sent you. So let me know if that works, Matt. We got time for maybe one more question here. Happy to accommodate any of the questions that roll in. Okay, it works. Awesome. Sounds good, Matt. Let us know if you need anything else. Keep us posted on how that goes. Got a 1-minute warning here. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and wind down here. So it's been a great live stream. Again, if anybody had any issues with the time change, my apologies. I'll put in a better announcement in the channel to make sure everybody knows that the time has changed for daylight savings time and that it's an hour different. And, may try to move this to a Wednesday to kind of help shuffle things around a little bit. So I'll give everybody a solid heads up if that transition actually takes into place. Like I said, if people just have to do it on Mondays, that's fine. We can keep this time, but might make my life a little easier if we did it on Wednesdays. So hope you all enjoy this stream. Thanks for bringing great questions. Hope you got a lot out of this. If you have any more follow-up questions, feel free to drop them in the Blockchain Mastery Slack in the appropriate channel. It's code question goes in coding. If it's a bootcamp question, goes in bootcamp. Other blockchain related questions are happy to go into Blockchain Mastery. All right. All right, everybody. So I'll catch you next time. See ya.